I'm Lu Yan from Beijing Review Magazine, and this is the Governance Podcast, a podcast that explores the past, present, and future of governance in China as it works toward meeting its development goals and finds its place in the global community. 56 ethnicities, one nation. This phrase captures the diversity and unity of China, a multi-ethnic nation of 1.4 billion people. In addition to the Han, who make up some 91% of the population, 55 other ethnic groups, collectively known as ethnic minorities, call the country home. Their population ranges from 19.6 million for the Zhuang, the largest, to 3,544 for the Tatar, the smallest, according to the 2020 national census. Most Zhuang people live in Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region, whereas the Tatar inhabit the north of Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. The ethnic groups were identified based on field research conducted after the People's Republic of China was founded in 1949. Their ancestors have coexisted on this land since antiquity. Over the long course of history, there were times when different ethnic groups interacted in peace and times when they fought for dominance. Several ethnic minority groups succeeded in seizing the throne to found dynasties, including the Yuan 1279 to 1368, led by Mongolians, and the Qing 1644 to 1911, led by Manchu people. All this is evidence that all ethnic groups are builders of the Chinese territory, writers of Chinese history, and creators of the Chinese culture. President Xi Jinping has reiterated the importance of creating a strong sense of community for the Chinese nation. He has called for more interactions, exchanges, and integration among different ethnic groups so that they can remain closely united and work jointly for common prosperity and development. The law on ethnic unity and progress that is to be adopted during this year's annual full session of the National People's Congress, China's top legislature, in March is expected to help promote ethnic relations. Joining me for this episode of the Governance Podcast is Gao Chenghai, a PhD supervisor at Northwest Normal University in Lanzhou, Gansu Province. He carries out research on ethnic psychology and social identity and is the author of the book Ethnic Relations from the Perspective of Identity. Its English version is set to be published by global academic and scientific publisher Springer. Professor Gao, thank you for joining the Governance Podcast. First of all, could you please share with us some of the findings from your research into Western countries' ethnic policies as well as the lessons they offer?
谢谢吕岩的邀请，也很高兴。
Thank you for having me, Lu Yan. I'm happy to take this opportunity to share my research findings. From a global perspective, ethnic issues are a challenge faced by almost every country. Around the world, more than 2,000 ethnic groups constitute some 200 countries, with the vast majority being multi-ethnic states. Whether they are long-established multi-ethnic countries or those formed through immigration such as the US, Canada, and Australia, cultural and ethnic diversity is a distinctive feature of modern countries. When it comes to ethnic policies, Western countries have undergone 3 stages. First, assimilation. The ideology and policies of assimilation have long existed in Western countries, becoming particularly prominent after the formation of modern nation-states. They formulated coercive assimilation policies based on the theory of civilization export and assimilation, targeting both internal and external groups, internally toward ethnic minorities and externally toward colonies. For instance, the United States, France, and the United Kingdom historically implemented assimilation policies towards their domestic ethnic minorities and indigenous peoples. Spain and Portugal enforced assimilation policies on the indigenous populations of Central and South America. France carried out assimilation policies in its colonies in Asia and Africa, and the United Kingdom implemented assimilation policies in its colonies across the 4 continents of Asia, Africa, Oceania, and Latin America. These assimilation policies, in essence, amounted to discrimination, oppression, expulsion, and segregation against ethnic minority groups and colonized peoples. Second, multiculturalism. Following the onset of the human rights movement in the mid-20th century, Western countries were compelled to abandon their assimilation policies towards ethnic minorities and began to adopt multiculturalism as a key principle in addressing ethnic issues. The core idea of multiculturalism emphasizes cultural equality, recognition and respect for differences, and opposition to racial discrimination. Based on this concept, countries have formulated corresponding multicultural policies. Multiculturalism first emerged during the civil rights movement in the United States in the 1950s and 60s, subsequently influencing immigrant nations such as Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, and spreading to Western European countries in the 1980s. Multiculturalism has played a positive role in Western countries' handling of racial and ethnic relations, to some extent easing racial tensions and improving the international image of countries that had previously adopted assimilation policies. Third, a shift towards civic integration. Since the 21st century, racial and ethnic conflicts in Western countries have been increasing continuously, and international terrorist incidents have occurred frequently. Multiculturalism has been regarded as the prime culprit by people in many countries, and as a result, multiculturalism has fallen into a predicament. For example, the heads of government or state in the UK, Germany, France, and the Netherlands publicly declared multiculturalism a failure, prompting many nations to shift towards civic integration policies to enhance social cohesion and national identity. However, as the principles of multiculturalism have become deeply ingrained, Western countries continue to uphold and even strengthen these principles in the implementation of new policies. Multiculturalism and civic integration policies are not mutually exclusive, and it is an overstatement to claim that multiculturalism has completely failed. I believe that the shift from multiculturalism to civic integration policies in Western countries indicates their recognition of the drawbacks of multiculturalism, moving from an overemphasis on diversity to a greater emphasis on unity. This shift highlights the advantages of China's unity in diversity concept. China's unity in diversity concept not only acknowledges the cultural equality of all ethnic groups, but also promotes the interconnection among them. In other words, while emphasizing and recognizing diversity, it also places greater importance on unity, viewing unity and diversity as a relationship between the whole and its parts.
President Xi Jinping has advocated the sense of community for the Chinese nation. What does this mean?
The essence of the sense of community for the Chinese nation lies in the members of all ethnic groups identifying with their shared identity, the Chinese nation, which includes cognitive, affective, and behavioral dimensions. The cognitive dimension refers to members of all ethnic groups recognizing themselves as part of the Chinese nation, understanding the history and culture of the Chinese nation, and acknowledging its characteristic of unity in diversity. The affective dimension involves a sense of belonging and attachment to the collective identity of the Chinese nation. The behavioral dimension includes the behavioral tendencies to preserve the Chinese national culture, promote the spirit of the Chinese nation, and uphold the unity of the Chinese nation. The defining characteristic of the sense of community for the Chinese nation is its unity in diversity. That is, the Chinese nation is composed of 56 ethnic groups. As President Xi stated, the relationship between the Chinese nation and its constituent ethnic groups is akin to that between an extended family and its individual members. A crucial aspect of cultivating and strengthening the sense of community for the Chinese nation among all ethnic groups is properly managing the relationships between family members. Only when family members cherish and support one another can this extended family achieve harmony and cohesion.
What are the challenges in developing this sense of community?
China's various ethnic groups exhibit differences in language, culture, and economic development. These differentiating factors have led to certain prejudices and estrangement between ethnic groups, particularly between ethnic minorities and the Han majority. Also, my research shows that many people hold the belief that ethnicity is determined by deep-rooted biological factors, and that psychological and behavioral differences between groups are unchangeable. This perspective reinforces ethnic boundaries and hinders social interactions and cultural adaptation. In contrast, others believe ethnicity is a human construct, driven by social and historical factors, and the attributes of ethnicity are not fixed. This attitude is conducive to inter-ethnic interactions. Moreover, there is intergroup anxiety. This arises when people anticipate being excluded or threatened when interacting with members of other ethnic groups. Therefore, to strengthen the sense of community for the Chinese nation, the primary task is to properly manage inter-ethnic relations, especially those between ethnic minorities and the Han majority.
President Xi also highlights interactions, exchanges, and integration among ethnic groups. Why is this important?
Throughout history, despite dynastic changes and fluctuations, the different ethnic groups in China have become deeply interconnected, evolving into an inseparable community and gradually integrating into today's unified multi-ethnic nation. However, it's important to clarify that ethnic integration does not seek to eliminate differences, but rather fosters mutual acceptance and inclusiveness among groups. It is a dynamic process, not an end result. Research at home and abroad shows that intergroup contact is the most effective strategy in reducing prejudices and improving ethnic relations. It can strengthen all ethnic groups' sense of belonging to their collective identity, that is, the Chinese nation. It can help members of these groups realize that ethnic differences are not rooted in biological essences, but are socially constructed and mutable. It can also reduce stereotypes and intergroup anxiety. In a quantitative study, we surveyed 1,046 college students from 4 universities in Gansu and Qinghai provinces, including 730 ethnic minority students and 316 Han students. As demonstrated by the data from this study, university students in mixed residential arrangements exhibit significantly higher levels of the sense of community for the Chinese nation compared to those in non-mixed living environments. This illustrates the importance of inter-ethnic relations, exchanges, and integration. Thus, one of the key strategies for strengthening the sense of community for the Chinese nation among university students of all ethnic backgrounds is to promote their interactions, exchanges, and integration in all aspects of campus life. This shows interactions, exchanges, and integration among ethnic groups are of pivotal importance to college students. But the story does not end on campus. In a broader sense, it is important to develop more embedded communities, where members of different ethnic groups live, study, work, and enjoy leisure time together, and promote inclusiveness in society at large.
Thank you for joining our podcast, Professor Gao. Let me make a summary. All of China's ethnic groups have together charted a vast territory, built a unified multi-ethnic country, created the country's history and culture, and cultivated a strong national ethos. Despite varying in customs, the 56 ethnic groups identify themselves as part of the Chinese nation, making China a community based on shared culture and civilization. Understanding the Chinese civilization requires taking into account all of these groups. Diversity and unity are two sides of the same coin. Throughout this series, we'll be exploring topics related to President Xi and how governance is practiced in China. To stay up to date on the podcasts, visit the Beijing Review website, bjreview.com. Find us on YouTube or Spotify with the tag Beijing Review, or look for us where you get your podcasts. I'm Lu Yan in Beijing. Thanks for listening to the Governance Podcast. Bye for now.